There are a few things that I wish someone would have told me on maternity leave, and I'm going to share those with you today, hopefully to set you up for better success when you're returning to work. If you're new to the channel, my name's Allison Tolman. I'm a nurse, IBCLC, a breast pump expert, a mom of 3, a fellow working mom like you. If you are pumping or breastfeeding and a working mom in any capacity, make sure you subscribe because I would love to see you back every week because we're putting out videos every week to make this journey easier for you. So let's dive in and do this. Okay, first, I recognize that everyone has different goals, has different places where they're at. This first one here is really designed for mothers that have a strong desire to feed at the breast, who are breastfeeding. And so number 1 on this list is to establish a good breastfeeding routine. What I see happening sometimes is moms will add in the pump way too early before they've got breastfeeding established and going, and it makes things super confusing because breastfeeding and pumping are 2 totally different skill sets. They are not the same at all. So if you're still like fumbling through breastfeeding and then you're also adding in a pump, it just gets really complicated. Sometimes we have to add in the pump early because breastfeeding is not going well. Baby's not getting it, or they're tongue-tied, or they have a cleft lip, or they're not getting it for some reason. And we have to use the pump as a great tool to maintain the milk supply, to give the baby breast milk while we figure that out. I get that. But for the most part, if you can just focus on getting breastfeeding figured out, talking to a lactation consultant in your area, making sure that the latch is good, that the baby's gaining weight well. You can take a breastfeeding course. I have one. I'll list it down below for you. Just making sure that you really focus on getting breastfeeding going if this is an important aspect of the journey to you. Messing with a pump too soon or before you need is just going to make your life really complicated. Number 2 tip for you is to build a support network, both personally and professionally. It will be so helpful if the people in your immediate space know how important breastfeeding is to you. And again, I know there's a wide range there, but I'm talking to most of the people here on this channel where breast milk is important. Like, you're here, this is important to you. Formula is great, it saves lives, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're not shaming anything here, but if you're here, it's likely that breast milk is important to you. Okay, so build yourself a community and talk with your partner. We have some videos on how to talk with your partner about this stuff. Make sure that they are supportive as well. They don't have to be as totally on board as you, but they need to know how you feel and what you think and why this is important to you. What are the benefits of breast milk? We have another video on that too. And so making sure you have that network. Are there other working moms that you can connect with? Are there people that have done this before? You know, if you have no one, make sure you find that. And then also professionals. Make sure you know where your local lactation consultants are. If you need pump specific help, make sure you have an expert that is well versed in pumping. We do have a long-term support program called Pumping for Working Moms, where we focus on pumping fast and efficiently for moms who are busy and have a lot of other things to do. So if that's you and you want a step-by-step guide and access to a professional for this whole experience, you can apply to work with us down below. But make sure you know who's in your corner and communicate to the people closest to you why this is important, what you're going to do, and how you are going to need help. Number 3 is to actually pump and store some breast milk. So maternity leave is a great time to practice. And this can be a much lower stress environment to start exploring your breast pump and to start storing milk, feeding, frozen milk, making sure that kind of these aspects are in line, kind of setting you up for success when you do go back to work. I will put another video up top on the differences between pumping at home and at work because it's not always the same. Sometimes we do see moms that are back to work that come to us for help that are just kind of freaking out because it was nothing like their experience in pumping at home. So many aspects are harder. They're not getting enough milk. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So I'll let you watch that other video if you want. But making sure that you have at least explored the pump before you go back to work. Ideally, like for a timeline, if you can focus on breastfeeding for the first few weeks, as soon as that's going fairly well, then when we have the brain space to kind of start introducing the pump from there, making sure that we're getting good flange size, that we know what the settings look like, we understand our milk supply a little bit better, which again, I know can be really complicated when you have a baby feeding at the breast and also you're pumping. Even for those who are exclusively pumping on maternity leave, it can get really complicated trying to figure out where your individual milk supply is at, because you kind of have the training wheels of the post-birth hormones on for the first 12-ish weeks or so. And so sometimes things can just flow, pun intended, I guess, and just go really easily when maybe not everything's quite right. But this is the part where we practice. It's a good idea on maternity leave. But again, number one on this list was to kind of establish breastfeeding first. So that's still the recommendation there. Number 4, you should probably be practicing bottle feeding, and this can be really fun. You know you're going to have to bottle feed the baby when you go back to work, so we might as well practice and get the hang of it. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. Like when babies are like 3, 4, 5 months old, sometimes they get more opinionated and can be little stinkers about taking a bottle, but introducing it too early can also cause some confusion if you're also feeding at the breast. So not as much nipple confusion, that's kind of the word that I hear. Sometimes it's a flow preference confusion, and maybe I should do another video on that. Maybe I'll do that. But practicing bottle feeding on maternity leave is a great idea. And you can kind of do that as soon as breastfeeding is well established. You don't even have to be pumping a ton to do that. Any extra milk you collect, you can use for practicing bottle feeding. Just make sure that you're doing paced bottle feeding and some practices that will help the transition between breast and bottle go smoothly, because you don't want to start that bottle and then have them now struggling at the breast. It can kind of just, be complicated. So practice bottle feeding. Just kind of be intentional on how you do that. Number 5 is to plan your return to work. And I think that might sound silly because if you are anything like me, you're probably already thinking about this, coming up with a plan, just making sure that you kind of know what you're getting into. As a first-time mom, this can be really overwhelming because a lot of it is just you don't know what to expect. You kind of don't know what you don't know. So sometimes we just have to get into it and then adjust as you go. If you've done this before, you may know what to expect. I hear a combination of good and okay experiences as well as some really bad experiences, and not necessarily because of difficult employers. Like, I think we are coming around in the world to knowing that mothers are going to have to pump and employers are being more accommodating to mothers, and some situations are just difficult. But I think a lot of it too is just how do we maintain a milk supply with a breast pump in the workplace? We have to do the same amount of work in less time because we have pumping breaks now scheduled throughout all of our work day, which is really tricky. There's a really big block that sometimes we see with moms who are pumping at work, and it's when your pumping alarm goes off and you're in the middle of a task. It is so frustrating to have to stop what you're doing, go do your pump, come back, try and re-engage. It's a lot mentally. Like, not only are the logistics of pumping tricky at work, but there's a lot of mental and emotional aspects that go into it. Not to mention, it becomes more difficult to pump milk effectively and quickly, which you need to do because you're at work, when you're stressed and overwhelmed and constantly being pulled between a million different scenarios. This is one of the reasons why I chose to work specifically with working moms. And I know it can be frustrating for some of you who stay at home, or maybe you're exclusively pumping and you want help. And we help exclusive pumpers too in the program that are working moms. But I have a real soft spot and a real passion for moms who are trying to do this at work. One of my favorite things to do is to balance the science and the practical. So this means, actually, let me show you what's on my desk here all the time. These are some of my favorite things. So the first thing that I look at every day is this anatomical model of a breast. This reminds me that there is a science to making milk and to pumping it effectively. And it's important. There are things that we just cannot replace if we don't do it correctly. The science of breastfeeding and pumping and making milk is a thing. But there's also this, which is the practical aspects of being a breastfeeding mom, and especially in the workplace. I ordered this on Etsy. It's a 3D print of this mom, and I love it. This reminds me that it is not easy, and it is not all about science. We have to find a balance between what we know works, what we know makes milk, what we know about ourselves and our own milk supply and our pump and our baby and everything, and balance that with the practical aspects of your life. You are now a mother, and maybe a mother again. You are an employee. You are a partner in most cases. You have a lot of identities. Heaven forbid you have hobbies on top of this. I mean, actually, a recent interview I did with a mom inside of our program, she does jujitsu, actually. So she not only is a breastfeeding working mom of 2, she also has a hobby, a really physical hobby that she enjoys in doing jujitsu. So now she's balancing all of these things and pumping on top of that. It was actually a really cool interview. I'll link it down below for you, but it's a lot. I know it's a lot. I've been there. I am there with you. And so this is why it's important to me, especially on maternity leave, take care of yourself, but also I know that one of your main responsibilities is to take care of this new little life, this new little baby that you have, and it can be overwhelming and challenging. And then when we go back to work, it's just kind of like adding insult to injury. It's adding the cherry on top of all of the things you were managing before. Like I said, pumping is not a plug and play. You don't just get push play and milk comes. At least it didn't for me, and it doesn't for a lot of other moms, which really is why I created this support program. So if you need some help, if you need a step-by-step guide on how to do this quickly and efficiently and effectively, then let me know and you can apply to work with me down below. It is application only because we like to make sure that we have what you need and that we can work with you long-term and get you to your goals. But maternity leave is a wonderful time. It's also a stressful time. Many moms love it. And then kind of that back to work transition happens and things kind of explode. So I hope some of these steps can help you get an idea of some of the things that I wish someone would have told me were the most important things to do on maternity leave. Enjoy yourself and your baby. Heal from birth. It's not just you come home and now your body is how it was and then you get to take care of a baby. You're also trying to heal yourself. So making sure that you are taking care of yourself, that you're asking for help, that you are eating and drinking. Oh my gosh, that should be on the list too. You would not be surprised how many moms I've worked with on maternity leave they're super moms. They're doing all the stuff. They're taking care of their baby. They're growing fantastically. They're getting the hang of breastfeeding. They're introducing a breast pump. And then it's 2 p.m. and I'm talking to you and I'm like, when was the last time you ate today? And they were like, oh, I haven't eaten yet today. I'm like, what are you doing? No wonder you're struggling, not only with your milk supply, but mentally, emotionally. You got to take care of yourself too. It's a lot, but I hope that at least gives you some idea of how to handle a maternity leave, some of the biggest things you can do that will make your life easier in the long run. There's a lot more videos on the channel on this topic. And if you have any more questions down below, I feel like I did not cover enough in this video on how to tackle a maternity leave well. So please comment down below, what questions do you have? What worked well for you? We'll make some follow-up videos. That'll be kind of fun. And we'll go from there. Please, I love interacting with you in the comments, and make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. If you need help and want an expert alongside with you this journey, let me know. There's a link down in the description. Okay, we'll see you on the next video. Good luck on your maternity leave and happy pumping.